Sourdakis. I think it's time for an English. $19.45. That's a good rating, but not out of my range entirely. Let's see if I can go for a Botvinnik setup. Knight c6 is a very unusual response. Yeah, usually they bring this knight out. Okay, so he just breaks with d4 right away. If I take, he can not take with the queen. He has to take with the knight. Then I can put some pressure on his knight with my bishop. I am threatening to take it. So it's a free developing move. He can trade, he can defend, he can retreat. He let me trade my c-pawn for his d-pawn, so I have 2 pawns in the center, but the missing c-pawn means the center is not entirely as strong as it might be. But if he takes my knight, I'll take with the c-pawn, and then I'll be able to play e4 and d4, and I'll have a pretty nice looking center there. So I guess he doesn't want to take my knight, unless he gets some other advantage, maybe some tempo advantage by taking there. So I think he should just defend. Or retreat. Yeah, retreating, there's nothing wrong with that, especially. So the Botvinnik setup is not an option anymore because I don't have the pawn on c4. So I could go with either d4 or e4 here, but probably in this setup makes the most sense to play knight f3 and pawn to d4. And he's saying I can't get that in because he gets an e5. Okay, so we've got kind of a reverse Sicilian here. I've got a dragon set up. I'm not unhappy with that either. It's a reasonable way to play, I think. I'm going to castle first and then decide where to put the dark squared bishop. It could come out to g5 here, but then if he kicks it, it either has to retreat or trade itself off. So I'm not quite sure where the best square for that is. Sometimes this bishop goes to e3, looking out on the queen side, especially if black goes for queenside castling, which might be an option if he was trying to stay on Sicilian lines, but he's not. Seems like he's more looking at kingside castling. Yeah, there he goes. So another plan for my bishop is to put it on this diagonal, pointing at his king. Maybe that's better, because I don't want to put it on g4 just to trade it off or retreat it. g5. Okay, so we'll start with a3. Go a3, b4, bishop b2, rook c1, that kind of setup. The knight in front of the c-pawn seems a bit misplaced to me. Well, it can always hop into d4. I'll keep that in mind. Knight d4 now. I will still play b4 because I want to get the pawn out of b3, above b3, so the knight can't hop in. I don't want the knight hopping into b3, so I want to get the pawn past that. Although he couldn't go to b3 right away because the queen covers it. But if he had bishop e6, I suppose, bishop e6, knight d4, then the knight could come into b3. Or the bishop even. So I'd like to get the pawn past that obstacle. Okay, it looks like he didn't want my knight going to b5, harassing his bishop. And then he does want to play knight to d4. And as I said, I'm just going to ignore that knight for the moment. Because if he takes, bring my bishop forward. If he brings his bishop out to h3, maybe with the queen behind it, then I'll have to start worrying what to do. I could think of preemptively playing e3 here to kick that knight away. The knight could run to f5 or go back to e6. Leaves me with a weak d-pawn, so I have to play that kind of thing carefully. Looks like he's getting his rook off of this diagonal, so that eliminates some tactics. Maybe he wants to move the b-pawn forward, and he doesn't want the knight exposed to a discovered, or the rook exposed to a discovered attack. So now knight takes knight here, pawn takes, and I play knight here. He takes, I take with the bishop. And the pawn here is hanging, but his bishop just moves back or goes here to defend. I think I prefer to kick that knight away. Now, when this knight moves, then I'll have two attackers on the e-pawn. This knight and this bishop. So maybe I can use that to some effect. Or maybe I should just push the d-pawn onto d4. Pawn takes, knight takes, queen takes. And then he can move the bishop. And we can trade queens. As long as he doesn't move the bishop with check, I should have a decent position there. So if the knight moves away and I play d4, he might push his pawn forward. So I just have to make sure I've got a place for this knight to go. But knight to g4 looks good. Unless he's played knight e6. Then I won't have knight g4. But the knight could go back to d2 then. Just gang up on that pawn. Okay, wow, he's really thinking hard here. I suppose he can move very quickly when it comes down to crunch time. I mean, I think white has a good setup, but I don't know why he would want to burn all this clock time at this point. Deciding whether to take or not, I guess. Well, anyway, that was a fairly easy decision, although I could have considered queen takes, I suppose. But I was a little annoyed he was taking so long. So now d4 is that a good idea? If he advances, I can just take it. If he takes, I can take with the queen. So yeah, d4 is still possible here. Okay, and it looks like he wants to put his bishop here. So if I go d4 first, he plays bishops there. I can trade bishop and then take. Should be okay. There's something I have here that's better than okay. If I go with the knight to e4, he can just trade it off and then play the bishop here. I mean, I kind of want to give my dark squared bishop some scope, so that's why I'm going with this. But it does give his dark squared bishop some scope too. So, you know, can't have everything. Or you win some, you lose some, something like that. At least he'll have to start moving faster pretty soon. Yeah, so my plan was just to take with the queen. He can't easily harass the queen there, and I am lined up in a nice battery. Yeah, so should I take first? I don't want to give him this diagonal. It's too much. But I could retreat and then let him take, and that would bring my king forward. Or I could take, and that brings his rook forward. How about this? Take here. And then I'll play knight to d5, threatening to take the knight and then mate on h3. Is there a better threat? I could play knight to e4 instead of knight to d5 and then trade off his bishop and have bishop versus knight. Can't tell which is better, but I'm trying this one. He can't take the knight. And he probably doesn't want to let me take his knight. Yeah, so he goes like that. Yeah, okay, so that was a good response. So now I can bring the knight here or here. I suppose he can trade queens. Yeah, so if I'd gone with my knight to d5, then I would have been able to take that bishop off. Yeah, and I can't just move my queen anywhere because the knight, I have to worry about what's happening with the knight. So I can move the knight first and let him trade. But if I go here, he takes, I'll take. I guess it's okay. If he trades queens, I take with the bishop, defending my knight. I was worried about getting a loose c-pawn there. And here I can take with the queen. So we'll get this bishop versus knight scenario. So yeah, he defended along the diagonal. Here, let's bring a rook into the game. Other rook, I guess. Okay, so I can trade and give him doubled pawns over here. I think I will. Oh, he can take with the knight, but then I can grab the c-pawn. He decided that was better than suffering the doubled pawns. Okay. And I still have this battery here. Okay, so he brought his queen here. I can take another pawn, but that would just open my queen up to some counterattack. So let's go back to the battery here. Okay, he lost on time. I don't think I had such a huge advantage here, but anyway, I will take the win. So let's upload this and do a postmortem, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.